Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, they co-authored a book about Biden's decline. Now, we mentioned this on the show before, but now Jake Tapper has been, I guess, kind of making the rounds on corporate media to explain to people what he didn't know, what he should have known, and et cetera, et cetera. What I want you guys to know is that this is a crock of shit, okay? That's what this really is. These commentators on corporate media sat back and saw the same things that all of us saw, okay? Like, they watch TV just like we watch TV. The same way that we were able to see that there was a decline with Joe Biden, the same way they were able to see that as well. Well, now Jake Tapper is saying that he's looking back on this with humility. They're even going to discuss that apparently Biden's spine was starting to degenerate. And if he were to win re-election, he may have to govern from a wheelchair. So it goes further than we were even thinking. Like, we knew there was something mentally going on there, but his physical health also, there were issues there as well. Let's get into this clip here from CNN.
Think of conservatives now criticizing you and the media in general for how President Biden was covered during his administration.
First of all, this is misleading. They can't even do this right, okay? It's not just conservatives who have been making that criticism. There have been liberals also making this criticism, especially those that supported Kamala Harris. I've seen them making criticism because they feel like Joe Biden really messed this up for Kamala. You see, they can't even do this right.
I think some of the criticism is fair, to be honest, of me. Certainly, I'm not going to speak for anybody else. But knowing then what I know now, I look back at my coverage during the Biden years, and I did cover some of these issues, but not enough. I look back on it with humility. Look, what we learned through our reporting is that starting in around 2019, 2020, there were two Bidens. There was a Biden that was perfectly workable, serviceable, seemed fine. And then there was a non-functioning one that couldn't come up with names of top aides, that would lose his train of thought to an alarming degree. And that non-functioning Biden reared his head increasingly over and over. It really seemed to exacerbate and get much worse in 2023, 2024.
Okay. Think about what he just said there, that there were two different Bidens. No, there weren't two different Bidens. There was one Joe Biden who at some points was given obviously some type of upper, some type of drug to keep him alert and awake. Remember, at one point they were discussing that Biden had difficulty staying awake, or he had to turn down at a certain time throughout the day or whatever. So just keep that in mind. There was one Joe Biden, but you only chose to discuss Biden after he took those drugs. That's what you chose to focus on. In fact, don't forget, and you're going to see it here tonight, Jake Tapper and his crew were notorious to run cover for Joe Biden. Even when there was video footage right in front of them, they made up all these excuses. They made up excuses and said, oh, these videos aren't real. They're probably doctored. Oh, it's probably just AI. When it was real, these things were real in real time, and they did whatever they could to run cover for him. Now you're going to see this part here from Jake Tapper. Like I said, I don't know. He's on some type of apology tour where they talk about the wheelchair.
I'm curious about what his advisors were saying at the time as you look at this, as you reported out this book.
So the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, was telling White House aides that President Biden's deterioration of his spine, the degeneration, was so significant that if he fell one more time, that he might have to be in a wheelchair and serve in a wheelchair for his second term.
Pause. Now that is coming from the White House doctor. The White House doctor said that Biden was in that bad shape that he couldn't even risk having a fall, another fall. And Jake Tapper and Dana Bash and all of them sat there and lied to the American people and told you that Biden was doing just fine and not to believe the video footage that you were seeing, not to believe your own eyes. I started to see a decline with Joe Biden during the 2020 Democrat primary debates. I noticed a slip then compared to him under the Obama administration. But then it increased. It got significantly worse. So I do not want people to fall for this apology tour that Jake Tapper is going on. I don't believe anything that Jake Tapper is saying about not being aware of this situation, because despite what the White House told you, despite what they said to you, if you are a reporter and you are a journalist, it is your job to uncover the truth. It is not supposed to be your job to repeat White House talking points and State Department talking points, but that is essentially what CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC have become. That's what they do. That's why I say don't call them journalists, don't call them reporters. They call themselves these things, but they're not actually uncovering any truths. They're relaying information to you that has already been given to them. So if CNN is telling you what the White House told them, what truth are they uncovering? And regardless of what the White House told you, you have eyes. So you saw the same things that I could see. And I don't want to hear about, I didn't work closely with Joe Biden. It doesn't matter. I didn't work with Joe Biden either. I don't live in DC. I'm not on the Hill. I'm not on CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News, any of these channels. I'm not in any of those spaces, but I have eyes and I have ears. And all of you saw the same things that I saw. So if we saw it, how is it that they didn't see it? Make it make sense, people. Make it make sense. And it's not even just that. Now they go on to talk about that video where Obama had to grab him off the stage. I want to remind you of this.
Can you bring up President Obama? Because there was a moment at that fundraiser, and that fundraiser really was a key moment for a lot of people in this history, which you so brilliantly document. But President Biden walked down to the end of the stage of this fundraiser for a moment. You can see it right there, and seemed to stare a little blankly into the crowd, and then President Obama tugged on him. You saw that tug and led him off the stage. So you just said you spoke to a lot of people who were there for that. What else did they tell you about it?
Well, Obama's side of that story is he wasn't sure what was going on, but he just wanted to get out of there, and he wasn't going to get out of there without Biden. So he grabbed him, and it was more just his impatience than anything else. But other people who were there, and we should note that the Biden White House falsely, when people showed that clip and asked what was going on, said it was a cheap fake. They did this all the time when there was video that seemed to show Biden acting in an odd or unusual, seemingly out of it way. They would call it a cheap fake.
Okay. It doesn't matter that the White House told you that the video was a cheap fake. As a reporter, as a so-called journalist, it is your job to uncover the truth. And that's where corporate media has failed over the years. They don't try to do that anymore. They just repeat State Department talking points. They repeat the talking points from the White House. This is what they do. CNN leans a little left. Fox News leans a little right. One side caters to Republicans. One side caters to Democrats. And both networks are basically repeating these talking points from the State Department. It's not real. So he's trying to put the blame on the White House, but you deliver the news. Regardless of what the White House said, there were people who were there in the audience that confirmed that they saw what they saw. And instead of reporting that, you decided to repeat the talking points from the White House. That's the part to me that is just so aggravating.
It was not fake. It was actual video. And people in the arena who did not see the horrifying scene behind the stage, but in the arena, Congresswoman Annie Kuster, Jon Favreau, former Obama chief speechwriter, and others, just from that event and Biden walking towards the edge of the stage, thought, oh my God, something is wrong here. He's not going to make it.
I mean, it's laughable at this point. Now, that's Jake Tapper. Again, he's doing the book tour because he wrote the book, co-authored the book. And now it's like he's trying to make money off of it. So I want to take you back to the many times CNN tried to mislead the people. Watch this.
Other people who were there, and we should note that the Biden White House falsely, when people showed that clip and asked what was going on, said it was a cheap fake. They did this all the time when there was video that seemed to show Biden acting in an odd or unusual, seemingly out of it way. They would call it a cheap fake. It was not fake. It was actual video.
A lot of memes and what the White House is calling cheap fakes, which means that there are videos that are being put out on social media and then amplified on conservative media that in some cases are just not right, and in other cases are highly, highly misleading of President Biden.
So this is Dana Bash, CNN. All of these segments were on CNN. They said the videos were false. They said it wasn't right. Look how many lies they told you about October 7th. Look how many lies they told you about the Palestinian people. I mean, it is a lying ass network. It's not just them. All corporate media, they're just telling these lies. So it's not just Jake Tapper. There were a number of people that lied to the American people and tried to convince you that Joe Biden was doing very well when they have eyes just like we do.
It's the question that I started this conversation with, is how much to talk about it versus how much to just kind of ignore it, which is a reality. You have a 78-year-old and an 82-year-old, 81-year-old, and we have lots of examples of both of them. Yeah. Maybe Trump's aren't played as much, but both of them appearing to use your words, lose a step.
I think what the White House and Biden campaign, what they have an issue with is that these outlets are wrapping these videos in very misleading context, right? Saying that this is evidence that Biden was freezing. He's unable to walk off stage on his own. And that's obviously not the case. But that's how it's being portrayed in right-wing media. And it plays into this years-long narrative where they have tried to portray Biden as a senile old man, incapable of governing the country. And this is just the latest example.
They said it was a right-wing thing when it was literally people just having eyes. Like, do you see this? Do you see how the duopoly has people so like, this is crazy, to the point that everything that happens is not a right-wing thing. Everything that happened isn't a left thing. There's also sometimes just the truth, which was that Joe Biden was experiencing decline right before our eyes, and you guys tried to lie about it. They told you right there to your face that the videos weren't real. The videos were real. They didn't do any type of research or investigation to find out if the videos were fake or not. I don't remember seeing Jake Tapper or Dana Dash or any of them go out on the street and do any real investigative research for journalism. No, they just repeated the talking points that came from the White House. And then you got this guy over here, Humpty Dumpty. Brian comes in, and he was probably one of the worst ones to also say it's all lies. Listen.
The White House press secretary used the phrase cheap fakes, the idea of cheap fakes. Let me explain what that is to people. We've been worried for years about AI deep fakes, that computer-generated images are going to trick people into believing something that's totally false. Cheap fakes are a little bit simpler. They're cheap. They're just distorted, out-of-context videos, chopped up in certain ways, constructed in certain ways. That's what we're seeing. That's what the Biden administration, the Biden campaign is so worried about right now. But make no mistake, they are worried about this. This is a real problem. This is not some made up fiction. The videos are oftentimes made up, but the problem is real.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to tell you. Make it make sense. Make it make sense, right? Because once again, what it shows you is that corporate media cannot be trusted. Even Khanna, even he's in on it. Khanna sitting here trying to pretend like I don't know nothing about nothing. I don't know. I wasn't around Biden long. I only saw him every now and then. Listen to this.
Sir, here you are several times before the election saying that he was just fine. Watch this.
Biden seeking re-election?
Absolutely. I've seen the president twice in the last 2 weeks. I've had a conversation with him. He's completely mentally sharp. When the president is out there, he's at his best. Have him debate in the general election. I don't think Donald Trump will. I have spoken with the president. He is fully coherent. He is on top of details when I have talked to him.
Were you telling the truth back then?
I was. I have met him a few times at public events, and he was. But of course, I didn't have the full picture. I mean, I met him maybe 2 times on rope lines and at public events. And I do think it's important that, given what has come out, that we take accountability. Obviously, he should not have run. We should be clear to say that. Obviously, there should have been an open primary. And I don't think that's very difficult. Democrats should just be straight up that He should not have run. Now that we know all of the facts, there should have.
Let's pause. Ro Khanna likes to play this game too, right? So here's the thing. Ro Khanna's in DC. He's in Congress. He's had opportunities to actually be near Joe Biden. The rest of us have not. So I just want to remind you of something. Ro Khanna is one of the few that will go on to independent media shows, even smaller shows. Ro Khanna has come onto shows under Biden's presidency that have covered just that have covered Biden's, issues, covered Biden's decline, right? So whether you were in a room with Joe Biden multiple times or not doesn't matter. What matters is that you saw the same thing on the screen that we saw. Now he says, we should have had a primary, but at the time, don't forget that Ro Khanna endorsed Joe Biden. He wasn't saying we needed a primary then. Does everybody remember this? Now, all of a sudden, all these people are so bold and they say we need to have a primary, should have been this way, should have been that way. But at the time, all of them got in line and they endorsed Joe Biden. And Ro Khanna was one of those people. So Ro Khanna, he knows how to play the game. And that's how he keeps his seat, right? That's how he makes sure that they don't come after him and try to push him out of his seat.
Been an open primary. I think to move on and move forward, it's important to take accountability and be straightforward with the American people.
Do you blame him for this or his family? Like, why wasn't there some sort of intervention when clearly it was obvious that something was very wrong? It didn't just happen once or twice. It happened almost weekly.
Ultimately, the buck stops with the president. He made an incorrect decision of running, and given all that the reporting that has come out. Now, look, there were those of us, including me, who were surrogates for him, campaigning for him. When we saw him on a rope line, when we had a 2-minute conversation with him at an event.
But you saw him on TV. You saw him falling down. You saw him, looking around, trying to figure out where he was supposed to go next. So you saw Barack Obama here leading him off the stage as if he didn't know where he was going. So it wasn't that you only saw him in those little instances, right?
Well, I saw him in those instances, and I saw him on television like every other American.
That's what I was saying. So he saw him in more situations than we did. Ro Khanna is playing a game. Jake Tapper is playing a game. And now Jake Tapper is trying to make money off of it. He's not the only one. Hakeem Jeffries here. Now all of a sudden he don't know nothing about nothing. All of these people got in line when it was time to do so, and they didn't speak out against it.
President Biden didn't even recognize George Clooney at a fundraiser that the movie star was actually hosting for him. Why should voters trust Democrats when it's clear so many in your party went to great lengths to keep Biden's condition hidden from the public?
I can't tell you what happened between George Clooney and President Biden. I wasn't at that event. What I can say is that we're not looking backward. We're going to continue to look forward, because at this moment, we've got real problems that need to be addressed on behalf of the American people, including the Republican effort to snatch away health care, snatch away food assistance, and hurt veterans.
He doesn't want to look backwards because he doesn't want to look at the lies that they told.
You interacted with President Biden during those days, those final days he was president of the United States. Did you sense there was a major deterioration?
Well, in the conversations that I was able to have on behalf of the House Democratic Caucus in those final days, we simply expressed our perspective as to what would be best for the party at that given moment in time. President Biden subsequently made the decision that he was going to pass the baton to Vice President Kamala Harris. Of course, that was a decision that we supported strongly.
Did any of you watching have personal conversations with Joe Biden? Because I sure as hell didn't, but I was able to see what was going on, right? So all of them have decided to get on code. That's how this works, ladies and gentlemen. All of them got on code and they're like, well, we didn't know. I only saw him so many times. You know what I mean? And so now even Chuck Todd, now he got his balls back, right? Chuck Todd found his balls now that he's not on Meet the Press. And now he's being more vocal and he's like, oh, you guys did this so wrong. It's also going to be a problem for people who worked for Biden. Listen.
In many ways, I think this Biden book is only going to not just undermine Biden, but I think make it toxic for anybody that worked for Biden. Because then it becomes, where were you? How did you participate in the cover-up? Pete Buttigieg, this may mean something for you. You were a cabinet secretary. Are you going to now tell us, yeah, I didn't have much interaction with him? Well, then why didn't you say something? I had a cabinet secretary tell me that. They had no interaction with him and wondered about that. I had that off the record. After Biden quit, I've since shared it with people. I'm still not going to share who the cabinet secretary was because that's not I'm trying, I believe in keeping your word as a journalist, and it was an off the record as far as it being told to me. And I think it's up to that person to decide whether to speak out or not. But I think it's a question, anybody who worked directly for Biden. So Gina Raimondo, if she thinks about running for president, Pete Buttigieg, all of these cabinet secretaries are now going to have to answer for all of this. And I do wonder if it's going to make anybody that touches Biden persona non grata, not just anybody directly in the Biden world.
Yeah. Again, like I said, Chuck found his balls now. Everybody has something to say. And I'll show you another little excerpt here as well, just a compilation of how they all came in to run cover for Biden. Like I said, make it make sense. He mentioned Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg it's very obvious, which we'll cover that story. It's very obvious that Pete looks like he is going to run for president for 2028. He's already hosting town halls, and he started in Iowa, which is typically the case. That's kind of how this works. He moved to a swing state, which is Michigan. So we're going to get into, all of that. But yeah, everybody looking at all of you guys like, can the Democratic Party be trusted? And my answer is no. These parties cannot be trusted. But for people who are Democrat voters that still believed in the Democratic Party, that are now a little bit upset because they feel like the Democrats aren't even trying to fight back against Donald Trump. Now you add this on top of that. There are a number of people that have already left the Democratic Party. You guys know this? There are a number of people that have left the Democratic Party because they feel like the Democratic Party has been lying to them, which they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Look at all the lies. Look at all the people who covered.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth.
He's sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
I don't have any concerns, and that's from personal interactions.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. Alert, sound.
I mean, the Republicans are good at distractions.
I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And if the Democrats were honest, they'd admit President Biden's mental capacity is declining. 6 in 10 Americans don't have confidence in Joe Biden's mental capacity.
Then you have the liberal media told bad things about me and members of the Oversight Committee because we have the audacity to investigate.
Giving us their drive-by diagnoses of the President of the United States.
Congressman, what you are suggesting is that I omit portions of my reasoning and explanation to the Attorney General for political reasons.
Democrats get into a frenzy.
Do you think people close to President Biden are being honest about his mental state?
And these slip-ups kind of happen.
I mean, there should be no concern.
So I don't really care if he was off for 90 minutes and didn't put on like people wanted him to put on.
I saw no more in his declination than I've seen in anybody else.
Sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
This is a very sharp president.
Incredibly sharp, incredibly probing.
He is sharp. He is on top of things.
The president has no impairment.
Nobody's buying that. No. Nobody's buying what he's selling.
And the pipeline of videos that aren't telling the full truth.
All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity is declined is wrong.
The same right-wing influences that are trying to take me down are trying to take down President Biden. So
Joe Biden.
See, notice how everything that was critical of Biden, everything was smeared as right-wing.
Biden's not the one calling the shots.
And let's look at President Biden.
People see he's not. Nobody suggests he's senile, and that's disrespectful of senior people with any kind of memory disability.
We're all aware of how he's doing.
President of Mexico, Sisi. We finally beat Medicare.
Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. You know what? I don't really care.
I'm serious.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him.
Cover-up is a very loaded term.
I don't think that there is a huge cover-up underway here.
If anybody out there gives a damn about the truth, read that interview.
Original Sin. It's about President Biden's disastrous decision to run for re-election and the cover-up of his decline.
We missed a lot of this story.
And I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline and cover up of his decline.
We missed a lot of this story.
If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
And they say I'm in good shape. Okay.
That was made by the Oversight Committee. It's hilarious, but the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, they all lied. They all lied. Make it make sense. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.